The small hand tugged at Dante Russo's tailored pants with innocent persistence. He looked down, ready to dismiss whatever child had wandered into his path outside the charity gala, but the words that came from those tiny lips shattered 5 years of carefully constructed grief. "You're my father." The world stopped. Isabella, though he didn't know her name yet, stared up at him with eyes he'd seen every morning in his mirror. Dark, intense, unmistakably Russo. But it was the woman frozen 20 feet away, face drained of all color, that made his blood turn to ice. Elena. Elena, who was supposed to be dead. Elena, whose funeral he'd attended. Elena, whose grave he still visited when the nightmares got too bad. "Mama?" the little girl called, confused by the sudden tension crackling through the air. Elena's lips formed his name, but no sound came out. And in that moment, Dante Russo, a man who controlled half of New York's underworld, who made grown men weep with a single look, felt something inside him fracture. She was alive. She'd been alive this whole time. And she'd hidden his daughter from him. This is a story of love, betrayal, and second chances that will grip you from beginning to end. If you want to discover how Elena survived, why she disappeared, and whether Dante can forgive the unforgivable, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps us bring you more stories like this. Let's begin. 5 years earlier, Elena Martinez had been invisible. That was the point of being a housekeeper in a world where money bought silence and loyalty was written in blood. She cleaned Dante Russo's penthouse 6 days a week, arrived before dawn, left before he returned from whatever business kept the city's most powerful mafia boss occupied until midnight. She was good at invisible. She'd been practicing her whole life. "Martinez." The head housekeeper's bark echoed through the service corridor. "Mr. Russo's study." "No." "And don't touch anything you don't need to." Elena's stomach clenched, but she nodded. In 3 months of working in the Russo residence, she'd never been called to clean while he was home. She grabbed her supplies and made her way through the labyrinth of marble hallways, each step echoing her hammering heartbeat. The study door was ajar. She knocked softly. "Come." The voice was deep, controlled, and laced with the kind of authority that made senators nervous. Elena pushed the door open and immediately understood why grown men feared Dante Russo. He sat behind a desk of dark mahogany, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and decorated with black ink. But it was his face that made her breath catch. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that missed nothing, and an expression that suggested he was calculating exactly how dangerous you were and how quickly he could eliminate you. At 28, Dante Russo looked like violence wrapped in expensive Italian fabric. "The carpet." He didn't look up from the document he was reading. Someone spilled wine. "Clean it." "Yes, sir." Elena kept her head down, moved to the corner where a dark stain marred the Persian rug. She worked quickly, efficiently, trying to ignore the weight of his presence. But halfway through blotting the stain, her hand knocked against the supply caddy. Glass shattered. Cleaner spread across marble. "I'm sorry." Elena dropped to her knees immediately, reaching for the broken pieces. "I'm so sorry, I'll—" "Stop." The command froze her mid-reach. Footsteps approached. She stared at the broken glass, at her own trembling hands, and waited for the termination she couldn't afford. 3 jobs. That's what it took to keep her mother's medical bills paid. 3 jobs, and she was about to lose the best-paying one because she was clumsy and exhausted. "Look at me." Slowly, Elena raised her eyes. Dante towered over her, and up close she could see the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened like he was restraining something volatile. "You're bleeding." She glanced down. Blood welled from a cut on her palm, mixing with the cleaning solution. She hadn't even felt it. "I'll clean it up," she whispered. "The mess. I'll stay late, You'll go to the kitchen and bandage that." His voice cut through her panic. Angela will show you where the first aid kit is." Elena blinked. "You're not firing me?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd think him that heartless. "It's glass and chemicals, Martinez. Not a felony." He paused. "Though you should probably sleep more. You look like you're about to collapse." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I'm fine. You work 3 jobs." "It wasn't a question. I can see it in the shadows under your eyes. The way your hands shake. How do you? I know everything about everyone who enters my home." Dante crouched down, bringing himself to her level. This close, she could smell expensive cologne and something darker beneath it. Gunpowder, maybe, or just the scent of danger itself. "Let me see the hand." Before she could protest, he'd taken her wrist in his grip. His touch was surprisingly gentle, calloused fingers turning her palm to examine the cut. Elena's pulse hammered so loud she was certain he could hear it. "Not deep," he said, but he didn't let go. His thumb pressed against the inside of her wrist, right over her racing pulse. Their eyes met, and something electric shot through her. "Mr. Russo." "Dante. That's inappropriate." "Probably." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Go bandage this. Then go home. Take tomorrow off." "I need the hours. You'll get paid." He released her wrist and stood, putting distance between them like he'd felt that spark too and didn't trust it. "Consider it workers' compensation for the injury you sustained in my employ." Elena gathered her cleaning supplies with shaking hands, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking her every movement. At the door, she paused. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet, Elena." The use of her first name sent another jolt through her. She fled before she could do something stupid like ask what he meant. Behind her, Dante returned to his desk but didn't pick up the document he'd been reading. Instead, he stared at the blood-stained glass on his floor and wondered why the hell his heart was racing like he'd just survived a firefight. He'd noticed Elena Martinez the first day she'd started working for him. Had run a background check within an hour. Single mother, single daughter caring for an ailing mother. 2 jobs before she'd added his household to her roster. No criminal record. No connections to any of his rivals. Just a woman trying to survive in a city that chewed up people like her and spit out the bones. He should have left it at that. Should have kept her as invisible as she tried to be. But when she'd looked up at him with those dark eyes, blood on her hands and fear in her voice, something in him had shifted. Something protective. Possessive. Dangerous. "Murder," Dante muttered, rubbing his jaw. This was going to be a problem. In the kitchen, Elena wrapped gauze around her palm with trembling fingers. Angela, the head housekeeper, watched her with knowing eyes. "First time talking to him?" "Yes. He has that effect." Angela smiled. "Like staring into a storm and wondering if you'll survive it." Elena thought about the gentleness in his touch, the concern in his voice. "He wasn't what I expected." "No one ever is, honey. No one ever is." That night, lying in her cramped Bronx apartment while her mother slept in the next room, Elena couldn't stop thinking about Dante Russo. About the way he'd said her name. About the heat in his gaze. She should be terrified. He was a mafia boss. A criminal. Everything her mother had warned her to stay away from. Instead, all she felt was that electric pull, drawing her back toward danger like a moth to a flame that would surely burn her alive. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in Dante's study again, but this time at his request. "You speak Spanish." He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. The afternoon sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows cast him in gold and shadow. "Yes." Elena kept her voice steady despite her confusion. "My mother is from Mexico." "And English, obviously." What else? Her brow furrowed. Some Italian. My father was Italian before he left. I picked up phrases. Interest sparked in Dante's dark eyes. Say something. I don't. Say something in Italian, Elena. The way he said her name made her stomach flip. She swallowed. Perch vuoi saperlo? Why do you want to know? His entire body went still. Your accent is perfect. Where did you learn? I taught myself. From books, mostly. And cooking shows. She felt heat creep up her neck at the admission. It's stupid, It's not stupid. Dante pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them. I need a translator for a meeting tomorrow night. The man I'm negotiating with prefers Italian, and my usual translator is indisposed. I'm a housekeeper. For the next 24 hours, you're my translator. You'll be compensated accordingly. He named a figure that made her head spin. 3 months of her salary in one night. I've never. You'll do fine. His hand came up, fingertips brushing a strand of hair away from her face. The gesture was so intimate, so unexpected, that Elena froze. Wear something nice. I'll have a car pick you up at 7. Mr. Russo. Dante, he corrected, voice dropping to something rough. When we're alone, I want to hear my name from your lips. Every rational thought screamed at her to refuse, to run, to remember who and what he was. Instead, Elena heard herself whisper, "Okay, Dante." The smile that crossed his face was devastating. Brava ragazza. Good girl. The next evening, Elena stood in her bedroom wearing a dress she'd found at a thrift store, black and simple but elegant enough for whatever world Dante inhabited. The car that arrived was a sleek black SUV, the kind that screamed money and danger in equal measure. The driver said nothing during the 40-minute drive to a restaurant in Manhattan that Elena had only seen in magazines. Inside, Dante waited at a private table in the back, and when he saw her, something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. "You look beautiful." "I look poor pretending to be something else," she countered, but her cheeks flushed. "You look like you belong here." He stood, pulled out her chair. "But if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." The meeting was tense, 2 hours of coded language and veiled threats while Elena translated, watching Dante negotiate a shipping deal that was clearly about much more than legal goods. She should have been afraid. Instead, she was fascinated by the way he commanded the room, the respect and fear he commanded without raising his voice. "You did well," Dante said afterward, as they walked to his car. "Better than well. You understood the subtext, translated not just the words but the intent. It wasn't hard to see what was really being discussed." Elena stopped, turned to face him on the dark street. "What you do, it's dangerous." "Always. I should stay away from you." "Yes." Dante stepped closer. "You should run as far from me as possible, Elena Martinez. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you never sleep again if you knew the details." "Then why are you telling me to run while looking at me like that?" His jaw clenched. "Because even bad men have moments of conscience. This is mine." Elena knew she should listen, should take the out he was offering. Instead, she reached up and touched his face, felt the muscle jump under her palm. "What if I don't want to run?" "Then God help us both." He kissed her then, backed her against the car with a hunger that stole her breath. One hand tangled in her hair, the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Elena had been kissed before, but never like this, like she was oxygen and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "Come home with me." It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Yes. That night changed everything. In Dante's penthouse, he made love to her with a reverence that contradicted everything she knew about him, whispered Italian endearments against her skin, showed her a gentleness she hadn't known he possessed. "Sei la mia rovina," he murmured as they lay tangled together in his sheets. "You are my ruin." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm never letting you go." For 3 months, Elena lived in a dream. Dante was possessive, intense, but he treated her like something precious. Upgraded her mother's medical care. Made sure she stopped working herself to death. Slowly introduced her to his world while trying to shield her from its darkest corners. She knew it couldn't last. Nothing that bright ever did. The end came on a Tuesday. Elena was leaving Dante's building when a black sedan screeched to a stop beside her. Hands grabbed her, threw her inside. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, chemical smell overwhelming her senses. "Message for Russo," a voice said as darkness claimed her. "Everything you love dies." When Elena woke, she was in a warehouse, tied to a chair. Blood dripped from a cut on her temple. Across from her, 3 men cleaned guns with casual precision. "He'll come for me," Elena said, voice hoarse. "We're counting on it, sweetheart." They were using her as bait. She was the trap meant to kill Dante. Terror flooded through her, sharp and suffocating. Not for herself, for him. Because she knew without question that Dante would walk into this knowing it was a trap, would sacrifice himself without hesitation. She couldn't let that happen. When her captor came close enough, Elena lunged. Her hands were bound, but her head was free, and she slammed her forehead into his nose with everything she had. Blood erupted. He stumbled back, and she ran. Gunfire erupted behind her. Something burned across her ribs. Elena kept running, crashed through a door into the night. The East River gleamed ahead, and behind her, footsteps pounded closer. Jump or die here. Those were her options. Elena jumped. The water was freezing, the current vicious. She fought toward the surface, but the darkness kept pulling her down. Her last thought before consciousness faded was of Dante's face. "Sei la mia rovina." She woke in a hospital 2 days later to the news that Elena Martinez had been found dead in the river. That her body had been identified. That Dante Russo had held a funeral while she was unconscious in a charity hospital under a false name. A nurse with kind eyes explained, her ID had been found on a body. Dental records had been switched. Someone had made her death look real. "There's a man who's been paying your bills," the nurse whispered. "Said you needed to disappear. Said the people who tried to kill you would try again if they knew you survived." Elena understood. One of Dante's people had saved her, had faked her death to protect her. But she also understood that she could never go back. As long as she was alive, she was a target. A weakness Dante's enemies could exploit. And she'd just discovered she was pregnant. The choice shattered her, but she made it anyway. Disappeared into the system. Changed her name. Moved to the Bronx where poverty made people invisible. She'd protect their daughter the only way she knew how, by making sure Dante never knew she existed. For 5 years it worked. Until Isabella tugged on the pants of a stranger outside a charity gala and said the words that brought their carefully separated worlds crashing together. "Get in the car." Dante's voice was stone. Elena stood on the sidewalk. Isabella pressed against her side, and stared at the man she'd loved and left. 5 years had carved harder lines into his face. Made his eyes colder. He looked like he'd aged a decade. "Dante, please. Get in the car." Each word was a bullet. "Or I will pick both of you up and put you there myself." Isabella whimpered. Elena felt her maternal instincts flare to life, fierce and protective. "Don't frighten her." Something cracked in his expression. Pain, fast and deep, before the mask slammed back into place. He crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. "I'm sorry, Piccola. I didn't mean to scare you." He looked at Isabella with something like wonder. "What's your name?" "Isabella Marie." Her daughter's voice was small. "Are you really my papa?" Dante's eyes closed. His jaw worked like he was fighting back emotion. "Yes, I am. Mama said you lived with the angels." "She did." Dante's gaze snapped to Elena, and the fury there could have melted steel. "How poetic!" Elena felt tears burn her eyes. "We'll go with you. But not here. Not like this." 20 minutes later, they were in Dante's penthouse, the same one Elena had cleaned a lifetime ago. Isabella had fallen asleep in the car, exhausted from the emotional upheaval, and Dante had carried her to a guest room with a gentleness that broke Elena's heart. Now they stood in his study, the same room where they'd met, and the silence was suffocating. 5 years. Dante poured himself a whiskey with steady hands. "You let me grieve you for 5 years. I had no choice." "There's always a choice." The glass shattered against the wall. Elena flinched, but stood her ground. Dante's control splintered. "I buried you. I put flowers on an empty grave every week. I destroyed the men who took you from me, burned their operations to ash, and it meant nothing because you were alive. I did it to protect her." Elena's voice cracked. "They tried to kill me to get to you. What do you think they'd do if they knew about Isabella? She'd be a target her entire life. I couldn't." A sob escaped her. "I couldn't let our daughter live in fear. So you let her grow up without a father instead. You think I wanted that? You think it didn't destroy me every day?" Tears streamed down Elena's face. "She asks about you constantly. Makes up stories about what kind of man you were. I had to tell her you were dead because the truth, that you're alive but she can never know you, would have broken her heart worse." Dante stood rigid, hands clenched into fists. "Who helped you? Who faked your death?" "I don't know. I woke up in a hospital under a different name. Someone paid the bills. Someone made sure I disappeared. Marco." Dante's voice was hollow. "My second. He died 6 months after you. Gunned down on the street." He laughed bitterly. "I thought it was random violence. Now I wonder if it was punishment for helping you." Elena felt the guilt crush her. "I'm sorry. God, Dante, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 5 years with my daughter." He turned away, bracing his hands on the desk. His shoulders shook. "She's 5 years old, Elena. 5. I missed everything. Her first words. Her first steps. Every birthday, every nightmare, every—" His voice broke. "Everything." Elena moved behind him, rested her hand on his back. She felt the tremor run through him, felt the grief and rage warring in his body. "I kept journals," she whispered. "Wrote down everything." Her first word was "Mama." Her first steps were at 11 months. She loves strawberries and hates peas. She's learning to read. She asks about you before she goes to sleep every single night. Dante turned slowly. Tears tracked down his face, and Elena had never seen him cry before. "Tell me everything." They sat on the floor of his study, backs against the wall, and Elena showed him 5 years of his daughter's life through photographs on her phone. She told him about Isabella's obsession with butterflies, her terrible singing voice, her habit of sleeping with 14 stuffed animals. "She has your eyes," Dante said, voice rough. "Your stubborn chin. But she laughs like you. Makes this little snorting sound when something's really funny. She got that from you. I don't snort. You do." Elena found herself smiling despite everything. When you're really trying not to laugh. Your shoulders shake and you make this sound and—" She stopped, the intimacy of the memory catching up to her. Dante was staring at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I still love you. All these years, every woman I tried to replace you with, nothing worked. You're it for me, Elena. You always were. Dante. But I don't know if I can forgive you." The honesty cut like a blade. "What you did, keeping Isabella from me, I understand why, but it feels like someone reached into my chest and carved out my heart." "I know." Elena's voice broke. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. I want you to know her. She deserves that. She deserves to have her father. And you? What do you deserve?" "Nothing," Elena whispered. "I lost that right when I made the choice to disappear." Dante reached out, cupped her face in his hand. His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You're wrong. You deserve everything, Bella. You always did. You saved our daughter's life. Made the hardest choice a mother could make. That doesn't erase my pain, but it doesn't erase your sacrifice either." "What happens now?" "Now." Dante's eyes went hard. "Now I find out who leaked your existence to my enemies 5 years ago. Because that's the only reason they targeted you. Someone betrayed me, and they're still out there." Fear spiked through Elena. What if they find out Isabella exists? "They won't." His voice was absolute. "Because I'm going to bury anyone who even thinks about touching my family. But that means you both stay here. With me. Under my protection. I can't live here. You don't have a choice." Dante stood, pulled her to her feet. "I've lost 5 years. I'm not losing another second. You and Isabella stay here, or I'll have someone following you every moment of every day anyway. At least here, I can keep you safe." Elena wanted to argue, but she saw the truth in his eyes. Dante Russo always got what he wanted. And right now, he wanted his family within reach, where nothing could take them from him again. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll stay." The kiss was inevitable. Dante pulled her against him with desperate hunger, poured 5 years of loneliness and longing into the press of his lips. Elena melted into him, let herself remember what it felt like to be held by the only man she'd ever loved. "Mama." They broke apart. Isabella stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "I had a bad dream." Dante moved before Elena could, crouching down to his daughter's level. "Want to tell me about it, Piccola?" Isabella studied him with serious eyes. "Are you really my papa? Or is this a dream too?" "I'm really your papa." Dante's voice was thick. "And I promise I'm never leaving you again." "Okay." Isabella held out her arms. "Can I have a hug?" Elena watched Dante gather their daughter into his arms, watched his eyes close as he held her for the first time, watched him breathe her in like she was oxygen. "I love you," he whispered against Isabella's hair. "More than anything in the world." "I love you too, Papa." And Elena knew, watching them together, that she'd made the right choice 5 years ago, even if it cost her everything, even if Dante never fully forgave her. Their daughter was alive, safe, and finally, she had her father. 3 days of domestic peace shattered when Dante came home covered in blood. Elena was reading to Isabella when the penthouse door opened. She looked up, saw Dante leaning against the doorframe, white shirt soaked crimson, and felt her heart stop. "It's not mine," he said immediately. "Elena, it's not." "Isabella, go to your room. Now." Their daughter's eyes went wide, but she obeyed. Elena waited until the door closed before rushing to Dante. "What happened?" "An ambush. Someone knew I'd be at the docks tonight. His hands shook as he unbuttoned his ruined shirt. 4 men dead. Could have been me. Elena helped him peel off the blood-soaked fabric, revealing bruised ribs and a cut along his shoulder that needed stitches. Sit down. I'll get the first aid kit. I shouldn't have come home like this. Dante's voice was raw. She doesn't need to see. She didn't see. And you're not going anywhere. Elena returned with supplies, began cleaning the wound with practiced efficiency. Tell me what happened. Someone's been feeding information to the Moretti family. They knew my schedule, knew exactly where I'd be. He hissed as she pressed gauze against the cut. It's the same leak from 5 years ago. Has to be. They knew about you then. They're targeting me now. Elena's hands stilled. You think finding me triggered this? I think they've been waiting. Watching. Dante caught her wrist, forced her to meet his eyes. Someone close to me is a traitor. Someone I trust. Your inner circle is small. Luca, Alessandro, Vincent. Men I'd die for. Dante's jaw clenched. One of them wants me dead. Elena finished bandaging him in silence, then helped him to his bedroom. He showered while she disposed of his bloody clothes, and when he emerged in sleep pants, she was sitting on his bed. Stay, she said quietly. Just stay with me tonight. Dante crawled under the covers, pulled her against his chest. They lay in the dark, listening to each other breathe. I killed a man tonight, Dante whispered. Put a bullet in his head because he tried to kill me first. This is my world, Elena. Violence, blood, death. It never stops. I know. Do you? Really? He shifted to look at her. Because Isabella is going to grow up seeing this. Understanding what I am. What I do. She'll understand you're a man who protects his family. Elena touched his face. Who would burn down the world for the people he loves? That's what matters. You still love me. It wasn't a question. After everything. After I said I don't know if I can forgive you. I never stopped. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Even when I hated myself for it. Dante kissed her then, deep and slow. I forgive you, he breathed against her lips. I don't want to. My pride says I should make you suffer. But life's too short and I've wasted too much time already. Dante. I love you, Elena Martinez. Always have. Always will. And I'm done pretending otherwise. They made love with a desperation born of 5 lost years, of tomorrow's uncertainty, of the knowledge that every moment together was stolen from death itself. Afterward, tangled together in sweat-dampened sheets, Elena felt something loosen in her chest. We need to find the traitor, she murmured. We will. And then what? We just live like this? Pretending it's normal. There's nothing normal about us, Bella. Dante pressed a kiss to her temple. But I'll take what I can get. The answer came 2 days later, when Alessandro, Dante's trusted lieutenant, brought news that changed everything. Boss, we found him. The leak. Dante looked up from where he was teaching Isabella to play chess. Who? Vincent. Alessandro's face was grim. Moretti offered him a fortune and a territory of his own. He's been feeding them information for 6 years. 6 years. Before Elena. Before everything. Where is he? Safe house in Brooklyn. He doesn't know we found out yet. Dante stood, kissed Isabella's head. Stay here with Alessandro, Piccola. Papa has to go to work. Okay. Isabella smiled up at him. Will you teach me more chess when you get back? Anything you want. In the hallway, Elena caught his arm. Don't go alone. I have to. Dante's eyes were chips of ice. Vincent was my friend. This betrayal, it's personal. That's exactly why you shouldn't go alone. You're emotional. You'll make mistakes. Then come with me. Elena blinked. What? You want to protect me? Fine. Come watch my back. Dante pulled her close. I trust you more than anyone. You and Isabella are the only things in this world I know are real. 20 minutes later, Elena sat in the passenger seat of Dante's SUV, a gun he'd given her heavy in her lap. You know how to use this? He'd asked. My father taught me before he left. Said women in this world needed to know how to defend themselves. The safe house was dark, quiet. Too quiet. Dante approached with his weapon drawn, and Elena felt every muscle in her body coil tight. The door was unlocked. Trap, Elena breathed. I know. Dante kicked it open anyway. Vincent sat in a chair in the center of the room, beaten and bloody. Behind him, 3 men with guns. And in the corner, watching with cold amusement, was someone Elena recognized from photographs. Marcus Moretti, head of the rival family. Russo. Marcus smiled. So predictable. I told Vincent you'd come for him yourself. This is between us. Dante's gun never wavered. Let him go. Why would I do that? He's served his purpose. You're here. And you brought a bonus. Marcus's eyes slid to Elena. The dead girlfriend. Quite the resurrection. Elena's blood turned to ice. You knew, she whispered. 5 years ago. You knew I survived. Of course I knew. I had men searching that river for days. Marcus's smile widened. But then I thought, why kill her when she could lead me to something better? A child, perhaps? An heir. Dante moved half a step in front of Elena. You've known about Isabella this whole time. Since the moment she was born. I've had someone watching them for years. Waiting for the perfect moment to use that information. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed them a photograph that made Elena's heart stop. Isabella. Taken yesterday. Playing in the penthouse garden. Touch her and I'll kill everyone you've ever loved, Dante said, voice dead calm. Starting with you. Big words for a man outnumbered and outgunned. Marcus gestured to his men. Kill Russo. Take the woman. And bring me that little girl. It's time the Moretti family got some new blood. Everything happened at once. Vincent threw himself backward, chair and all, knocking one gunman off balance. Dante fired twice, dropped 2 men before they could react. Elena raised her weapon, pulled the trigger, felt the recoil kick up her arm as Marcus stumbled back with a bullet in his shoulder. More men poured through the back door. Dante grabbed Elena, shoved her behind cover. Bullets tore through the air. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. We need to get to Isabella, Elena gasped. Alessandro's with her. He'll keep her safe. Dante reloaded with mechanical precision. But we need to end this. Now. He moved like violence incarnate, fast, brutal, efficient. Elena watched the man she loved become something else entirely, watched him eliminate threats with terrifying calm. She fired when she needed to, protected his blind spots, moved with him like they'd been doing this for years instead of minutes. When the smoke cleared, Marcus lay bleeding out on the floor. Vincent was unconscious. 7 men were dead. Dante pulled out his phone. Alessandro. Status. All clear, boss. No movement. Isabella's watching cartoons. She doesn't know anything's wrong. Relief flooded through Elena so powerfully her knees almost gave out. Dante caught her, held her steady. We're coming home. He ended the call, looked down at Marcus who was struggling to breathe. You made one mistake. What's that? Marcus wheezed. You threatened my family. Dante's voice was empty of emotion. There's no coming back from that. The gunshot echoed. Elena didn't flinch. The war ended that night. With Marcus Moretti dead and Vincent exposed, the remaining Moretti soldiers scattered. Some pledged loyalty to Dante. Others fled the city entirely. By dawn, the threat that had haunted them for 5 years was gone. But Elena couldn't stop shaking. She stood in Dante's bathroom, scrubbing blood from under her fingernails, some hers, some not, while her mind replayed the violence over and over. She'd killed a man tonight, pointed a gun at another human being and pulled the trigger. Elena. Dante appeared in the doorway. He'd showered, changed, but she could still see the weight of the night in his eyes. Talk to me. I killed someone. To protect yourself. To protect me. Does that make it okay? Her voice cracked. Because I don't feel like it's okay. I feel like... A sob escaped her. I feel like I became someone I don't recognize. Dante pulled her into his arms, held her while she cried. That feeling? That guilt? Hold on to it. It means you're still human. Still good. He pressed his lips to her hair. I've killed dozens of men and I stopped feeling guilty years ago. Don't become like me. You feel guilt. Elena pulled back to look at him. I see it. Every time you come home with blood on your hands. Every time Isabella asks where you've been. What I feel is regret. That's different. Dante wiped her tears with his thumbs. I regret the life I've built. The world I'm bringing my daughter into. But I can't change who I am. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to let me share the weight. Elena gripped his shirt. We're in this together now. All of it. The good, the bad, the blood, I choose it. I choose you. Something broke in Dante's expression. Relief, love, disbelief all tangled together. You shouldn't. Too late. I already did. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. Marry me. Elena's breath caught. What? Marry me. Not because you're the mother of my child or because it's expected. Marry me because I can't imagine another day without you beside me. Because you see the monster I am and love me anyway. His voice roughened. Because 5 years apart was a lifetime too long. Dante. I know I'm asking you to marry into darkness. To be the wife of a mafia boss. To live with constant danger. He cupped her face. But I swear to you, Elena Martinez, I will spend every day of my life protecting you, loving you, giving you and Isabella everything I have. Tears streamed down Elena's cheeks. You're absolutely insane. Is that a yes? Of course it's a yes, you impossible man. The smile that crossed Dante's face was pure joy. He picked her up, spun her around, kissed her until they were both laughing and crying at once. Mama? Papa? They turned to find Isabella standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why are you crying? Are you sad? No, Piccola. Dante set Elena down, crouched to his daughter's level. We're very, very happy. Why? Because your mama just agreed to marry me. Isabella's eyes went wide. Really? You're getting married? Like in the princess movies. Elena laughed. Something like that. Does this mean we get to stay here forever? In the big house with you, Papa? Dante pulled Isabella into a hug, looked up at Elena with so much love it hurt. Forever and always, tesoro mio. You're never getting rid of me now. Good. Isabella kissed his cheek. I like having a papa. 3 months later, Elena stood in a private garden overlooking the Manhattan skyline, wearing a dress that cost more than she'd earned in a year as a housekeeper. Isabella stood beside her as flower girl, practically vibrating with excitement. Alessandro and Luca flanked Dante at the altar, both grinning like fools. The ceremony was small, just family and Dante's most trusted people. The same priest who'd performed Dante's parents' wedding spoke the words that bound them together. I, Dante Russo, take you, Elena Martinez, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Elena's voice shook as she repeated the vows. I, Elena Martinez, take you, Dante Russo, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for blood and bullets, Dante added softly, a private joke that made her laugh through tears. For blood and bullets, she agreed. Until death do us part. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Dante pulled Elena close, kissed her with a reverence that made the small crowd cheer. Isabella squealed with delight, jumping up and down. At the reception, Elena watched Dante dance with their daughter, watched him spin her around while she giggled. She thought about the scared housekeeper she'd been 5 years ago, the desperate mother who'd chosen to disappear, the woman who'd faked her death to protect her child. She'd been so certain she was doing the right thing. And maybe she had been, for a time. But this, watching her daughter know her father's love, standing beside the man who owned her heart, this was what right looked like now. Regrets. Alessandro appeared at her elbow, offering champagne. Only that it took 5 years to get here. For what it's worth, I've never seen him this happy. Not in all the years I've known him. Alessandro smiled. You gave him something he thought he'd lost. Hope. Dante approached then, holding Isabella who'd fallen asleep on his shoulder. Come on, Mrs. Russo. Time to get our daughter to bed. Mrs. Russo. Elena would never get tired of hearing that. They carried Isabella upstairs together, tucked her into her new bedroom, decorated with butterflies and books and everything a little girl could want. Dante kissed her forehead, whispered something in Italian that made Elena's heart swell. In their own bedroom, he undressed her slowly, reverently, made love to her like she was something precious and breakable, even though they both knew she was stronger than steel. I love you, Dante murmured against her skin. My wife. My Elena. I love you too. My husband. My Dante. Later, wrapped in his arms while he slept, Elena stared at the ceiling and thought about the future. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more violence, more danger, more nights wondering if he'd come home. But they would face it together, a family forged in fire and blood and love that refused to die. She thought about the moment Isabella had said, "You're my father," to a stranger on the street. How that single sentence had brought them all back together. How fate had a funny way of working itself out. Dante stirred beside her, pulled her closer even in sleep. Elena smiled, closed her eyes, and let herself believe in happy endings, even the complicated, blood-stained ones that looked nothing like fairy tales. Because this was their story. And it was perfect. 5 years passed like a dream. Elena stood on the terrace of their home, no longer just a penthouse but a sprawling estate outside the city, where Isabella could play without armed guards watching her every move. Well, fewer armed guards, anyway. Some things never changed. Mama! Isabella's voice carried from the garden. She was 10 now, all long limbs and wild curls, with Dante's eyes and Elena's stubbornness. Come see what Papa taught me. Elena descended the stone steps to find her daughter and husband locked in an intense chess match. Dante was letting her win. Elena could tell by the slight smile playing at his lips, but Isabella didn't need to know that yet. Checkmate. Isabella crowed. I beat you, Papa. You did. Dante leaned back, pride radiating from every line of his body. "You're getting too good at this." "That's because I have the best teacher." He ruffled her hair, then looked up to meet Elena's gaze. Even after years of marriage, that look still made her heart race. "Your mother wants to tell you something." Isabella turned, curious. "What is it, Mama?" Elena placed a hand on her still flat stomach. "You're going to be a big sister." The squeal that erupted could probably be heard in Manhattan. Isabella launched herself at Elena, then pulled back quickly. "Wait. Should I be careful? Is the baby okay? Do you need to sit down?" "The baby's fine." Elena laughed, pulling her daughter close. "And you don't need to treat me like glass." "A brother or sister," Isabella breathed. "When?" 6 more months. Dante rose, crossed to them, wrapped his arms around both his girls. "Another blessing," he murmured. "Another reason to be grateful I didn't die in that alley 5 years ago." Elena leaned into him. The business was quieter now. Dante had shifted to more legitimate operations, though he still commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But he came home every night, coached Isabella's soccer team, made pancakes on Sunday mornings, loved them with an intensity that never wavered. "No regrets?" Elena asked softly. "Not a single one." Dante kissed her temple, then Isabella's head. "This, right here, this is everything." That evening, after Isabella went to bed, Elena and Dante sat on their terrace watching the city lights flicker in the distance. His hand rested on her stomach, feeling for movement that was still months away. "Boy or girl?" he asked. "Does it matter?" "Not even a little." Dante smiled. "As long as they have your heart and your strength." "Our love," he corrected. "That's what matters." Elena thought about the frightened housekeeper who'd scrubbed his floors, the desperate mother who'd jumped into a freezing river, the woman who'd stood beside him in a warehouse and pulled the trigger to protect what was theirs. She'd traveled so far from that first encounter, when he'd crouched beside her broken glass and bleeding hand and shown her gentleness she didn't know existed in his world. Every scar had been worth it. Every tear, every moment of terror, every hard choice. They'd led her here, to this terrace, this man, this life built from ashes and blood and love that refused to quit. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked. Elena turned to look at him, her husband, her partner, the father of her children. "I'm thinking about that day in your study, when you told me to bandage my hand and go home. I should have let you leave, should have kept you safe. If you had, we wouldn't have this." Elena gestured to the life they'd built. "Every moment of pain brought us here. I wouldn't change a single second." Dante pulled her close, breathed her in like he still couldn't quite believe she was real. "Say la mia vita. You are my life. E tu sei il mio cuore. And you are my heart." In the distance, the city sprawled beneath them, full of danger and darkness and violence that would never fully disappear. But here, in this moment, with Dante's arms around her and their daughter sleeping safely inside and new life growing beneath her heart, Elena knew the truth. They had won. Not perfectly, not without scars, but completely. And that was more than enough. And that's where our story ends, though for Dante, Elena, and Isabella, it's really just the beginning. If this journey moved you, if you felt every moment of their struggle and triumph, show your support with a like and share this story with someone who appreciates love that defies the odds. More emotional stories are coming your way soon. Until next time.